this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got two Walther pistols on the table that look somewhat alike each other. This one is the Walther Creed, chambered in 9mm, and this one is the Walther Ppq, chambered in 9mm. So I'm going to show you the differences between the two of them. They're very similar looking, very similar feeling when you hold them, but there are some key differences if you're comparing the two, wanting to try to make a decision one or the other. So I'm going to start with showing that we do have unloaded guns. So we've got an unloaded Ppq, and we have an unloaded Walther Creed. So I'm going to start with just the basics. And one of the things I'll start with is the price. The MSRPs, which is what I'll use since the price will vary depending on times, but the MSRPs are a good consistent thing to compare. On the Walther Ppq, the MSRP is $649, so that's this guy right here. And on the Walther Creed, the MSRP is $399. So you've got about a $250 difference in MSRP to start with on the two guns before we even start comparing the different features and capabilities of them. From a size perspective, they're similar, but the Creed is just a hair bigger in every dimension. The Walther Ppq is 7.1 inches front to back. The Creed is 7.3. The Ppq is 5.3 inches tall without a magazine, and the Creed is 5.6, and they're both 1.3 inches thick. Now if you look at the back of the Creed, it looks a little bit chunkier just because it doesn't have the tapered slide, but they are both 1.3 inches thick. Now one thing you're going to notice right away is this. The Creed is actually a hammer gun, and we'll talk about that a little bit. It's still got a nice trigger, but it is a hammer gun. They both have 4-inch barrels. Now one thing I'll note, and you'll see when I take it apart, this actually it was a Navy. We got this as a Navy, and it comes with a threaded barrel. We've got a Jarvis aftermarket non-threaded barrel in it at the moment. So when I talk about the barrel, I'll talk about the features of this threaded barrel. But it will look, if you buy one, it'll look a lot like this with the 4-inch barrel if you don't get the Navy, the threaded version. So trying to do apples to apples, we put the non-threaded barrel in. Both guns have a Picatinny rail, but as you can see, the Ppq, which is this one, has a 3-slot rail. The Creed has a 2-slot. That's really not a big deal. The aftermarket has dealt with Glock single-slot rails for so long that they all have adjustability features that allow you to slide things back and forth and can work with the number of slots you've got in your rail. So either of these guns has more slots than a Glock, and pretty much all the aftermarket stuff will work fine with it. Both of them have front and rear serrations that are fairly similar. You'll see that the Ppq, this guy here, has a little bit more serrations, a little more going on, but functionally both of them have got the front serrations that are available for a press check, and both of them have a very textured grip which is contoured with finger grooves. In fact, when you pick these two guns up, they feel basically the same. The balance on the Ppq is just a hair better. One thing I did fail to mention is the weight on these. The Ppq, the original Ppq, is 24.5, and the Creed is 27 ounces. So it's not a huge difference, but the Creed is heavier, so again, it's just bigger in all different dimensions. Though they do both have the similar looking grips, one thing you'll notice is that the Ppq does have the interchangeable backstrap system. You pop out a pin here and you can swap out the backstrap to customize the grip. The Creed lacks that feature. This is the grip, and this is the way it is. It doesn't come in sizes or anything else. This is just the grip. We did find that despite that, it is actually quite comfortable to hold and easy to work with the guns. They both have a 10F finish, which is a very strong, very durable finish. And the Ppq that we've had for quite a while has held up quite well. I'd expect the Creed to hold up just as well. The sights on them are both a 3-dot arrangement. They're a little bit different looking sights. And the Creed actually has bigger dots, just a hair easier to see. On the Ppq, the rear sight is adjustable with a screw. On the Creed, the website claims it is. And if you look at ours, there's a hole, it looks like you would have it, but if you look, you can see right through it. There is no screw adjust mechanism in there. So even though their website said the rear sight on the Creed is adjustable, it's not. But on the Ppq, it is. The adjustment mechanism is there. And they are dovetailed. at the back, and there's a screw that holds it from the bottom at the front. So both sights are replaceable if you wanted to replace them with a different type of sight. From a magazine capacity standpoint, let me put these critters down. They have the Ppq Magazine and the Creed magazines. They have different base plates. They are not interchangeable. The Ppq comes with a 15 round magazine, and a 17 is available. It's basically got an extended picky extender on it. The Navy came with a 15 and a 17. You can get the 17s and put them in a regular Ppq, they'll work. The Creed comes in right halfway between that. It comes with a 16 round magazine, and I'm not aware of other capacities available other than there is a 10 round available for states that have restrictions. So the capacity on this one kind of just sits right in between the two. They both have similar bases, slightly different. This one has a little bit of a thumb grab part. If you had the magazine in it and it was not ejecting, it gives you a place to kind of grab a hold of it and yank it out. The Ppq, the magazine sits quite flush, and you can get a hold of this. It's got just a hair of a lip there you could get a hold of if you had to yank the magazines out. But slightly different design at the bottom, but both the designs do seem to be quite functional. Now let's talk about the triggers. Of course, as everybody knows who's ever had experience with a Ppq, the Ppq has an awesome trigger. It's rated at 5.6 pounds. There's moderate take-up and a very, very, very short, crisp break. It feels a lot lighter than 5.6 pounds. And it's got one of the shortest resets out there in a striker gun. That's it. That's the entire reset. And you're right on the wall, and it breaks again. So the Ppq itself, the trigger is just phenomenal. Now on the Creed, you might wonder about the trigger, because as you see, the hammer is coming back. So you think, okay, well, I'm pulling back the hammer. That's going to be a long, heavy trigger. It's actually not. The Creed, what it does is it cocks the firing mechanism and disconnects the hammer from it. So when I'm pulling the trigger, it's very, very light. There's the take-up. This is back to the wall, and as I do that, the hammer is coming out. But there's just minimal tension on it. Really all I'm doing is bringing the hammer out. At the last part of the strike, right there is a very short, crisp break, and that's the point that the hammer actually connected to the spring mechanism and slammed forward. Now the reset on it is decent, but it's nearly all the way out. And that's one thing that kind of tripped us up when we had both these guns at the range. Hammer's had this Ppq for quite a long time. He's gotten very used to it, knows exactly where the reset is. And with the Creed, he had a couple occasions where he didn't let the trigger out far enough, pulled the trigger and nothing happened. It's not a defect in the gun didn't malfunction. It's just that if you've got both of these guns or you're used to a Ppq, you might have a tendency to short stroke this trigger. So it would be something to get used to. If you don't have a Ppq and you're just picking the Creed up, you'll have no problem getting used to it, and the trigger does work well. So I'm going to show it to you again. So there's the take-up, and as you see, the hammer's coming back. Real short, nice, crisp break. It rates at 6.5 pounds, and like the Ppq, it feels a lot lighter than that. And a noticeably longer reset than the Ppq. And then some take-up, and you break again. Overall, the trigger is quite nice. It's not quite as nice as the Ppq, but it's among the best of these hammer hybrid type guns that I've seen from a trigger perspective, and it's a quite usable trigger. And while I've got them sitting this way, you can see on the Ppq you've got an extended slide stop, slide release. You've got a somewhat extended one on the Walther Creed. On the Ppq it's ambidextrous, right from the factory, and it does work. The one on the other side does work reliably. On the Creed, it's not ambidextrous, and I don't believe it's convertible. The magazine release is interchangeable on both of them. And as you can see, there's a little bit of flaring on the ejection side of the Ppq, and it's kind of square on the other side. That hasn't really mattered. We've had no malfunction problems with either guns. They've eaten everything from good quality ammo down to the Perfecta from Walmart. So both of these have been totally reliable. So let's take them apart and show the differences in the internals. So one of the differences on the Ppq to the Creed is the takedown procedure. Ppq comes apart like a Glock. You pull it back, pull down on the tabs. You do have to pull the trigger, and it slides apart. The Creed, you have to lock it back like a P320 or some of the others. Push this little lever down, which goes down fairly easy. Release it, you don't have to pull the trigger, and it comes apart. So let's compare the internals. You see the Ppq has got a little bit more of a robust locking block, integrated slide guides, front and rear. And at the back, the Creed has got a little bit more going on here because of that unique firing mechanism. Both of these guns are well constructed, real solid. Nothing's flimsy, or there are no burrs or anything else. It's well put together gun. Set these aside. Okay, so I've got the Ppq here in this hand, and the Creed. Noticeable difference in the weight of the slides, and of course there's a little bit different in the functionality at the back. Both of these are drop safe weapons. They do have the integrated drop safeties. You can see the pin there for the Ppq, and it's here at the back for the Creed. And both of them have polymer guide rods with kind of that wafer spring. So I'll go ahead and pull the barrels out. Now here's the point where I'm going to set aside the Jarvis barrel that we've got and pick up this threaded barrel for the comparison. And again, the factory barrel for the non-Navy would be the same as this, it just wouldn't have the threading. And one thing you'll find with the Creed, it's kind of got this three-piece pressed together barrel, and there are some MIM parts. And you've got a very highly polished feed ramp that is inserted into this assembly. So the feed ramp is one piece, the actual barrel, you can see it kind of in there, and then the hood and locking mechanism are the third piece. The Ppq is a more conventional barrel. Ppq also has a nice polished feed ramp. If I put the two of them side by side, a little bit different profile. The Creed's feed ramp is a little bit chunkier. But again, we've had no feed issues with them. They've both worked totally reliably. And both of them have fed whatever it is that we wanted to put in them. Reassembly is just as easy as disassembly. We'll go ahead and put the Creed back together first. Drop the barrel in. Spring. And on the Creed, when you slide it back together, you lock it back, reset the little switch, and it doesn't pop back like some of them. You slap it and it'll just kind of snap back. This one you have to push it all the way up, but it goes easily. You're back in business. To do the Ppq, it's just as simple. I'll grab that Jarvis barrel that I've got, slide the barrel in, slide the spring in. Of course, that one, like a Glock, it automatically resets the release and it's back in business, ready to operate. So either of these guns will serve you well. You might be thinking, well, there's some things about the Ppq that are better, like the trigger and some of the internal components, so why would I get a Creed? Well, one of the biggest reasons is the price difference. $250 can be a significant difference depending on what your budget is. And you're getting almost as good a gun, you're getting almost as good a trigger, and you're getting the exact same quality and construction features, so that you're not compromising at all on quality, just a few features and a little bit details. So let me pick each one of these up and hold it and put the magazines in them. So this is what this one would look like in your hand. It fits up there nice, you can get your hand up in there good. A little bit of an undercut in the trigger, and it's a full 3-finger grip. And it does fit. This palm swell does seem to fit quite well. It just drops into my hand and it's comfortable there. And if I pick up the Ppq, it does appear that you get a little bit higher up on the Ppq. That might be an illusion just based on the height of the slides, but it does look like that there's a little bit more height on the Creed than the Ppq, which would translate to a slightly higher bore axis. But you get right up in there. Again, you have the undercut and the molded finger grooves. And of course, with this back strap, you can set where that palm swell sits in your hand, and you do get a full 3-finger grip. Both these guns are nice to hold. They're comfortable to hold. One thing that's different also, you'll see this has the split trigger with like the Glocks, which is part of the drop safety mechanism if it lands face down or face up. And it's a polymer trigger. This one actually has a metal trigger, which I thought to be unusual, and it's a curved, smooth trigger. It's a comfortable trigger to hold. It's a little bit wider. So there's, your finger sits on it nicely and it doesn't bite into your finger. It doesn't have the split piece, but of course, since this isn't a striker gun, it's a hammer-fired gun and the mechanism is different, the drop safeties are different, so that it's not a necessary component on this one to be drop safe. So overall, either would be a good choice. If budget's not a concern and you want the ultimate in trigger and features, grab the Ppq. If budgets are a little bit of a constraint, but you're wanting a quality gun, and you want something that's going to be reliable and not something that's going to give you trouble, yeah, you won't be giving up quality when you pick up the Creed. So, you can give that one a consideration. Either one would work well for you. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, check us out on Facebook, and have a great day. Thank you.